Very first video. This looks... Speaking of the Great Fairy Wars, we have Chirino's Perfect Law Class by Moon Channel. Thank you very much. How is Touhou legally possible? Oh, okay. For context, this is a copyright layer, and he talks about gaming and anime stuff on YouTube, and a couple of days ago, he uploaded a Touhou video. Wow, yeah, you're right. This is 4 days ago. Wow, I was very surprised. Beautiful stuff. Okay, this is going to be interesting. All right, here we go.
Japanese IP law is famously strict, and Japanese companies tend to be pretty harsh with their
I mean, we all know how generous Zun and Touhou is, right? So.
Now, as we've discussed in the past, that environment allows for some leeway when it comes to fan works made in Japan. But that leniency doesn't generally extend to fan works made outside of Japan. Just look at the innumerous articles on Nintendo, or even Sony or Sega cracking down on someone's fan game or ROM hack or fan art, right? I've argued before that the global legal environment surrounding intellectual property all but requires large corporate IP holders to act in this way.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a deja vu. So to make a long story short, your intellectual property is separated into different rights, including copyright and trademark. Your copyright protects your ability to control and profit from the work itself, while your trademark protects the brand under which that work is sold. Imagine then that you're playing, oh, I don't know, a bullet hell shooter. Your trademark is the little airplane thingy, and all the bullets are potentially confusing or unauthorized uses of your IP. Not every bullet will kill you, but if enough serious infringements get through, you can lose control of your brand, and especially large infringers need to be shot down pronto before they can cause further damage.
I mean, then I don't want to pause too much, right? Because this is quite a lengthy video, and I'm sure he'll touch on a lot of this stuff. But I mean, how relevant is this right now with the Nintendo, Pokemon, Pal World, and everything that's going on there, right? Like, it's oh right, got you. Thank you for that. It's like there's an element of anti-consumerism to it, isn't it? Like, how can you how can you do that? Or what was it? Sorry, like he mentioned copyright and trademark and things like that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the legalities of all this kind of stuff with the correct terminology. So I do apologize if I, misspeak or, use the wrong words, right? But how can you say like, capturing something and using it with a ball, I don't know, is copyrightable or trademarkable or something like that. It's so, I mean, as a gamer, I mean, you're seeing how much Power World is popping off, right? Like, you want good games, bro. And if Nintendo is gonna keep on pushing out the same kind of stuff and not innovating, that's their prerogative, right? Like, let other companies innovate where they do not want to. So, right. Yeah, no, I get it, and I can provide some context as a reaction channel as well. There are people that say like, oh, reaction channels are just like slop channels. They just watch stuff and that's pretty much it. And you know what? They're entirely entitled to that opinion. Like, it's fair enough, right? It's fair enough. But it's a matter of fact that people do discover things through stuff like reactions and playthroughs and all of that kind of stuff. In fact, we have been contacted by companies, agencies, and like for games, for VTubers, for all kinds of stuff to be like, hey, can you react to this? Can you promo this? Can you do this? And then we'll have our communities coming in and say, yo, this was awesome. This was great. Thank you for, showing me this. And that's not just for the sponsored stuff that we do as well, but also the regular things that we do, right? Now, because we're a variety channel now, Touhou fans will come into our Hololive content and be like, oh, I didn't know Narissa covered Bad Apple. Or like, what, this is cool. And then they'll discover Hololive, you know what I'm saying? Or vice versa as well. Like, oh, Narissa covered Bad Apple. What is Bad Apple? Then they'll see our channel. We've got a ton of Touhou stuff. And then they'll check it out that way. So there's so much that's, that can be done in the digital age if people just stop being so archaic, you know what I'm saying? If people stop being so archaic, man, like it's just so wild to me, dude. It's so wild to me. And a nice anecdote is Blue Archive, right? Like, Blue Archive is so free with copyright, okay? Did you know I've known Unwelcome School for so long because it's used in so many shorts and TikToks and stuff like that. And then when I heard it, when we started listening to Blue Archive music, I was like, bro, that's from this? Like, it was crazy. The connections were just flying. And then, you're like, oh, I want to discover more Blue Archive music now. And it's just wild. Yeah, hype that I mentioned. Reactors like you who actually watch and react to things instead of live chat reactions. That's quite funny because no. Whenever Chairkun is on stream, he does interact with you guys. It doesn't let the video play. Literal free advertising, especially when it's something you like and regularly react to, man. Yeah, Absolutely. I don't want to like pat myself on the back or anything like that. I'm just vibing. I'm just doing my own thing here as well. But Hyper, I'm very, very happy to hear that, man. I'm very glad to hear that. And like, I know for a fact that people get into other fandoms and other content through our content as well, right? And that means the world to me. And I'm glad when companies like see that. Not every company does. Not every company does, but some companies do, and it's awesome. It's awesome, you know, when they're more in tune with this century, like sorry, not this century, but like this decade, I guess, this era of free marketing. Essentially, is what it is. Correct. But that's it. That's all I wanted to yap about. I just wanted to right. It's just called. Oh, but that's the thing, Weege, as well. I don't have it with me right now, right? But a K-pop talent agency. Pretty big one, actually. They got in touch with us to promote one of their K-pop groups and sent us an album and everything like that, right? We've gotten contacted by The First Take a long time back to react to their stuff. Japanese VTuber agencies have contacted us as well to, you know, react to them as well, right? Like, I definitely agree there's an element of culture there as well. Like, I definitely agree that, you know, American companies are probably more friendly to that, like that aspect of it. But I think it's a generational thing as well. The older the company, yeah, that as well. I think it's definitely that aspect of it as well, man. I think it's a generational thing. I do think things are changing. Yeah. No, this stuff is just so like I'm very passionate about this kind of stuff. Man. But yeah, exactly, man. And I do understand there's nuance to it, but I think it's a bit too much on the strict not sharing anti-consumer side of things at the moment, right? Hey Ninja, how's it going, man? But with that being said, I feel like it's trending towards betterment. I feel like it is trending towards a good place, at least from my perspective, at least in my circle anyway. We'll see.
As you've surely seen then, IP holders can be quite quick to the trigger, and this is especially the case for Japanese IP holders. But there is one exception to that general rule.
Thank you, man. Dash, I really appreciate that, man.
Sound like summoning salt. Is Touhou.
Touhou!
No matter how many little IP infringing bullets you fire at Touhou, it just dodges them all. The creator and rights holder of Touhou, Zun, seems to allow for just about
really
everything
random.
and anything.
Gotta check that out. I gotta check that one out then.
Little IP infringing bullets you fire at Touhou, it just dodges them all. The creator and rights holder of Touhou, Zun, seems to allow for just about everything and anything.
Sorry, I was doing I was doing it 07, not to imply that he's unwell or anything. He's fine. He's good. 07 because thank you for all of your hard work and for letting this happen.
Seems to allow
just
for
realized
just
what I
about
was doing.
everything and anything. There have even been questions on forums and the like asking if Touhou is public domain. How is it possible for Touhou to come out of Japan of all places and have rules of engagement so lenient that people could mistake the IP for public domain?
For the major respect.
Doesn't that contradict the notion that everyone has to be so guarded with their IP? Why can't every intellectual property holder just be like Zun? Wouldn't that make the world a much better place?
Let's see this.
Well, the answer to all those questions is quite simple, really, and will sound rather familiar to Touhou players. It's a skill issue. You know, there's a joke in economics, paraphrasing a quote by economist Simon Kuznets, that goes something like,
I think the wrong time to drink water.
There are 4 types of economies in the world: developed, underdeveloped, Japan, and Argentina. Well, there are 4 types of intellectual property rights holders in the video gaming world too. They're strict, lenient Nintendo and Touhou.
Oh my days.
Let's discuss the Touhou difference and see how and why Zun is able to get away with his lenient enforcement, and then apply that framework to other rights holders to see if they too can get good.
Hey,
Hololive
mentioned as well.
Lost World, an officially licensed fan game on your phone, but alas, your device is running low on power. To whom do you turn, and what do you do? Well, you might turn to this video's sponsor, Ugreen, who has partnered with Honkai Star Rail to release a new line of products featuring Yaoguang-inspired exclusive designs available for a limited time only. I've actually used Ugreen products myself before, and I consider their gear to be a cut above.
Ugreen right now,
it's still
actually.
affordable, which is why I'm
I do like
to
Ugreen.
introduce you trailblazers to their latest collab. They sent me their collectible gift box set for us to check out, which is perfect because I rather desperately needed a new fast charger. As Larita here will show you, the premium collector's box comes with a magnetic power bank, a 65-watt charger, a retractable cable, and a Ugreen fine track, all fancifully designed with Yaoguang's signature peacock elements. And for the Yaoguangist amongst you, you also get a Yaoguang Chibi acrylic stick, a tin bag, a holographic ticket, and pouch. Collectibles available only with this gift box.
Okay.
Let's get a closer look at that power bank. Ugreen's MagFlow power bank features Qi 2 technology, which allows for 15-watt wireless fast charging. That's right, wireless fast charging. And despite its small size, it has a 10,000 milliampere hour capacity, enough to charge your smartphone about twice over. Your pocket-sized 65-watt fast charger with foldable plug, power bank, and other items all fit neatly into the included pouch as well, making it ideal for travel.
Okay.
And if you use an Apple device, a bad Apple, if you will and happen to lose your pouch, the Find Track can help you track it down. If you just can't get enough Madame Yao or battery charge, the Collab also features a Nexode Pro power bank with 45-watt output and a smart display that shows real-time battery status. The power bank can charge up to 3 devices at a time, turning all
I'm not gonna
your
lie, I
battery
kind of am.
loads into wheels. It's a lovely set. It looks absolutely stunning, and best of all, it works great.
Because I have to say,
green with envy. Get it? Green. Ugreen.
I am a fan of Ugreen. I use Ugreen on my daily day-to-day.
Star Rail collectible gift box with links in the description and pinned comment. You could even win this bonus gold collectible and other prizes, including this very gift box. That's the Ugreen X Honkai Star Rail collectible gift box, available via the link in the pinned comment and description.
All right.
A special thanks then to Ugreen for sponsoring this video. Before we get into how Touhou is possible, we have to first figure out what Touhou is. And Touhou is, it's...
Is this Bad Apple?
You see, there are these fairies and vampires and bugs or something, and they live in this fairy world.
Is this OG Bad Apple?
And look, Touhou is complicated, so let's start from the very beginning. Back in 1977, a man named Junya Ota was born in the village of Hakuba in the Nagano prefecture of Japan. And Junya, a creative youth even at a very young age, started using the nickname Zun early in his childhood. And Zun, it turns out, had a passion for music. In elementary school, Zun learned to play the trumpet as part of a school wind ensemble.
Wow.
And in junior high, Zun's parents, wishing to invest in said passion for music, purchased him an electone, an electric organ produced by the Yamaha Corporation. By high school, Zun developed an interest in making music for video games, citing such inspirations as the soundtrack of Street Fighter II. But as is the case with many East Asian children, despite Zun's passion for music, he ended up at Tokyo Denki University majoring in mathematics. Yet even as a math major, Zun continued working on his video game music in private, only to discover that he didn't actually know anybody making video games that he could insert his music into. And as such,
I'll do it myself.
Zun decided to make his own games for the singular purpose of giving his music some place to exist.
Wow,
in 1996 then, Zun released his first game, Touhou Reactions, the highly responsive to prayers for the Nippon Electric PC9800, better known as the PC98. Zun was only 19 years old when the game released.
19.
The gameplay was relatively simple. The player controlled a shrine maiden named Reimu Hakure.
Oh my god, we watched this stuff back in the day, didn't we? Wow! When we first started our Touhou adventure, our dive down Touhou's rabbit hole.
Once a yin-yang ball across the screen, using said ball to
I
various fights and bosses.
I remember
the
it.
game consisted of 20 total stages, with 2 selectable paths, each featuring unique content. From the very outset, then, from this very first game that would become the Touhou project,
piece of
the
history
pattern was established. The gameplay is nothing that spectacular, but the music, well, the music was magical. Zun went on to release 4 other games, now collectively known in the West as PC98 in reference to the computers they ran on. 2 of these games, Touhou Fumaroku, the story of Eastern Wonderland, and Touhou Yumejiku, the Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream, were released in 1997. The former game, the story of Eastern Wonderland, was the first Danmaku game in the series, the first curtain fire bullet hell game. This game also introduced Touhou's later deuteragonist Marisa Kirisame as a boss character.
Hey, how's it going, Jackson?
Games,
Welcome.
Touhou Gensokyo,
This is when Marisa was introduced,
Story and Touhou Kaikidan, Mystic Square, were released in 1998. Lotus Land Story introduces Marisa Kirisame as a playable character and provides the first reference to the world of Touhou, Gensokyo. Lotus Land Story is also responsible for Touhou's most infamous song, Bad Apple. And Mystic Square, for its part, introduced players to fan-favorite character Alice Margatroyd and is considered the most polished of the PC98 games. Now, at the time, all of these games were rather niche, to put it lightly. They were published by amusement makers, an unofficial student group at Tokyo Denki University, and thus penetration into the Japanese market was fairly limited, and the games were completely unknown in the West. Fun fact,
distribution was different back then, isn't it?
Is still up, and despite being last updated in 2010, it hasn't apparently changed very much since the 90s. The times they were changing though, and by 2002, Zun was ready with a new game, this time produced for Windows. And Zun, noting that Windows was a Western product, decided to include a sort of brick joke. He opened the game with a Western setting, introduced Western design characters, and brought in Western monsters as bosses, even though the series itself is literally named Eastern Direction, Touhou. This legendary game was none other than Touhou Komakyo, the embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Now, you might not have ever played a Touhou game. You might not even know any of these characters. But if you're like me, there's one thing you do know from Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, and arguably it's the most important thing: the music. The song you've most likely heard before is UN Owen Was Her. No, it has nothing to do with the United Nations. UN Owen comes from an Agatha Christie novel.
Michael Owen.
UN Owen
Wait, is that a different
pen name that spells out an Agatha Christie? Owen Was Her.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was football on Michael Owen, man.
With the United Nations, UN Owen comes from an Agatha Christie novel. UN Owen turns out to be a pen name that spells out unknown. You might have also seen some of the characters that made their debut in Scarlet Devil, including Remelia and Flandra Scarlet.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Hong Mei Ling, Patchouli Knowledge, and Sakuya Izayoi.
Bloody hell, they were all introduced in this game? Oh my
Even
god.
If, like me, you don't really have any idea who these characters are, what they're about, or what they do, if you've ever encountered anime avatar people on the internet, it's likely that you recognize them. I, to be fair, like most of the Touhou fanbase, have never played a Touhou game. But I know that Tsuno the Ice Fairy is terrible at math and that there are no buses in Gensokyo.
Oh
now, as we referenced already, Scarlet Devil has a lot of Western and Eastern cultural themes mashed together, and this is present all throughout not only the game itself, but the context surrounding the game. Scarlet Devil was
console
published,
remake
for example,
soon
by Team Shanghai Alice, though the team part is a bit of a misnomer. Zun was the only member of said team, and he remains the only member of said team to this very day. Why Shanghai? Well, it's because Shanghai was like a mix between the East and the West, said Zun in an interview. And Alice, well, Alice implies just a bit of, shall we say, wonder. And the game itself is a mix of Eastern and Western elements, from the characters and setting to the music featuring references to Agatha Christie, or even Beethoven, as was the case in Remelia Scarlet's theme, Septet for the Dead Princess, which draws substantial influence from Beethoven's Sonata No. 8 in C minor, Opus 13 Pathétique. Despite Zun's intentions then to create a quite literally Touhou, a Dongfang and Eastern Direction franchise, what he created was a bridge. A bridge between the nerdiest and most obscure underground Japanese nerddom and their equivalent in the West. Now, Scarlet Devil wasn't a massive hit right away, but it did build an underground cult following of fans in both the East and West who were fascinated by the Touhou universe and the characters within, all of whom were largely blank slates. And where passion meets a blank slate, creativity often arrives to fill in the colors. Scarlet Devil was arguably the largest hit of the Touhou franchise, but it was by no means the last game that Zun released. There have been 33 Touhou games released by Zun altogether, including Scarlet Devil and the PC 98.5, with a 34th game, a re-release of Scarlet Devil, having been announced on June 9th, 2026. One might observe, though, that the gameplay of the Touhou games themselves hasn't changed all that much. For how popular the series has gotten, the games still look like they're made by one guy, and quite frankly, like it's still 1998. But that's part of the charm, right? It's part of the cinema of Touhou, because Touhou isn't the games. Not really. Touhou is the fans. What Touhou is most known for is its multitudinous fan works. There are so many fan works in so many genres of art, be it music, fan art, fan games,
I got into Touhou to be the fan works first as well.
There are many fans of Touhou who don't actually know where it comes from or what it is. There are people like me who don't recognize the characters but know the songs. There are others who might have headcanons and ships and read fanfictions of the characters but whom never realized there were games or music associated.
Wow.
And there are yet others who just think these little weird fairy...
You know how much Touhou ASMR I'd listened to before realizing what it was?
Things are cute and they collect little plushies for good luck. Touhou is really a nerddom big tent without much in the way of the typical nerdy gatekeeping. And that's because of Zun himself, who has taken a very hands-off approach to his intellectual property rights, or at least, so it seems.
Oh, look at that.
The extraordinary amount and variety of fan works has led many an interested party to ask just how Zun can allow for so much derivative work. Zun is based in Japan, you see, and Japan is rather infamous for its strict copyright laws. And Japanese IP holders, be they in the anime or music or video games industry, tend to shoot first and ask questions later. Every content creator knows if you're going to reference anime clips, if you're going to use a city pop song or make a Nintendo fan game, you'd better get ready for an orbital copyright strike.
My God.
What allows Zun then to be so different? Why isn't Zun like Nintendo, for example? If you can make a fan work, even a non-profit fan work, Nintendo might still issue you a DMCA claim, right? Why do they have to do that when Zun doesn't? Surely there's some legal thing that Nintendo could do but doesn't, and that Zun does, right? Well, let's take a look, but in a different way than previous videos. Let's observe the history of Zun's handling of Touhou's copyright.
Is it? I have a theory, right? We'll find out, but this is just my prediction. Is it because it's one person? Is it because he is where it stops? Like he is the shot caller. Let's see.
Here's the original text of Zun's terms of use for Touhou fanworks with a translation taken from the Touhou wiki, and I quote, "Question: I want to make a derivative work based on the Touhou series characters and settings. Answer: the copyright of the Touhou series, including its characters, content, quotes, and music, belong to my circle. That said, this series is supported by many doujin creators." To paraphrase what comes after, Zun says you can make doujin without his express permission, but if there is trouble regarding said works, it's not his responsibility. He then provides the following guidelines for avoiding said trouble, such as not using game data other than screenshots, avoiding materials that aggravate other copyright owners, not mistaking the names of the games or characters, and seeking permission from Zun if a derivative material ends up being commercially mass-produced or circulated outside of doujin shops. Of note, Zun then states that decisions like for sale or for free, how many to print, the price to sell, adult only or not, etc. is entirely free for you to choose. You will note, this is pretty generous from a West.
He's basically saying, do what you want, but don't like cross any boundaries or anything. And yeah, ultimately the decision's with him. Yeah.
Western perspective. But this is not that unusual in Japan due to doujin culture. We've discussed this before, but Japanese IP law tends to favor the IP holder much more than our IP law in the West, due both to the absence of fair use doctrine and the comparatively narrow scope of its specifically enumerated exceptions. This legal imbalance in favor of the IP holder then, ironically, perhaps, helps to sustain a tolerated gray market. The lopsided legal system in favor of the IP holder allows said holder to permit small-scale, indie market doujin activity without necessarily surrendering the ability to intervene later. The fan creators, meanwhile, understand that this tolerance is...
Here we go. Okay, Japanese fans disown power with pocket for... Oh, what's this?
That their continued freedom depends upon remaining within the rights holder's informal boundaries. You need to stay relatively small, clearly unofficial, and separate from the rights holder's principal commercial markets. Japanese IP holders aren't dumb, right? They understand the power of fan marketing as much as anyone else does. They know that fans engaging with their work, even for some minor profit, is good for their overarching franchise, provided these fan works aren't wresting away any meaningful market share or creative control. And so, even IP holders we consider very strict here in the West, like, say, Nintendo/the Pokemon Company, allows for derivative works that can be bought and sold, provided they remain out of sight and out of mind in the indie doujin community. And for their part, the Japanese fans who participate in doujin culture are careful to self-police, to keep the good thing that they have going. Zun's initial statement then is not that unusual in practice. It's only interesting to note because it says the quiet part out loud, which, even in Japan at the time, would be considered rather refreshing and magnanimous. But note, this is in Japanese, directed at Japanese fans. Let's see what happens as the franchise expands and Western fans get involved. In 2011, Zun updates his terms of use, noting that whenever he releases an official game, fan works explode in number as well. He reminds fan artists that selling doujin works in commercial channels is generally not allowed, and that you need his permission to sell commercial goods. Zun then also places the following direct restrictions on all derivative works, including doujin works. Number 1. No for-profit development of primarily animation fan works. Number 2. No sale of software outside of his control. Number 3. No sale of fan works outside of doujin channels, like for download sites oriented for overseas customers. So, sorry, Brazilians. And number 4, so-called other works, which includes excessively prurient depictions, works that slander a person, group, or race, or other such works that are extremely inappropriate given societal norms. This update reiterates a lot, but it does also reference overseas customers, aka Westerners, for the first time. It also clarifies the "it's your choice to make your work adult-only" rule by establishing new boundaries. The 2011 terms of use remained in effect until 2020 when new fan work guidelines were posted on Touhou's official website. And these fan work guidelines, interestingly enough, start to look very conventional indeed. If you've seen my prior videos, this might all look incredibly familiar. We did this kind of analysis as well for the Minecraft terms of use, and the trajectory was quite similar. As the product becomes more profitable and fan works explode in popularity, taking a casual legal stance becomes dangerous as liabilities increase, as creative control decreases, etc. Now, suddenly, there are rather vague and broad prohibitions intentionally drafted as such to maximize the ability to act. On Touhou's guidelines, for example, we see that one cannot create content that means to harm Touhou Project's reputation. Believe it or not, this is rather standard legal language for these kinds of fan content guidelines precisely because of the utility of its broad scope. The more vague, the more powerful it is, right? The present English language guidelines for Touhou Project fan creators were last updated on November 10th, 2020. The Japanese language version has received later updates, but because this is the version expressly directed towards English language speaking creators, let's begin with the rules as they were communicated to the Western fandom. Take a look. Your fan content should never have anything that means harm to Touhou Project's reputation, anything that infringes upon other intellectual property, anything that might cause someone to mistake your fan content as official, anything extracted from official games, ending scenes from the games, anything meant to advertise personal beliefs beyond the bounds of fiction, other fan content without that creator's permission, excessively prurient content that is considered unlawful, or anything that promotes hatred against individuals or groups. And there are rules for distribution, which generally limit distribution to recognized doujin channels and other specifically approved platforms, rather than unrestricted commercial marketplaces. The examples provided include Japanese doujin events and shops, small-scale physical home distribution, Bookwalker, which is a major Japanese digital bookstore of sorts, Touhou's approved digital music distribution system, and certain individually permitted events. Browser and mobile fan games must generally be free to play, although advertisements and paid advertisement removal are permitted. Fan videos may also be uploaded to video sharing platforms, and if the creator is operating as a legal entity for commercial purposes, they are directed to seek individual permission from Zun. Observe, though, the legal loophole that exists here. Whereas in the 2011 guidelines, Western-facing digital distribution platforms seem to be specifically targeted as a no-go, the distribution section of the 2020 guidelines permits fan content to be distributed through platforms where, I quote, "you can find official Touhou Project contents and they are licensed or permitted by Zun." You can find official Touhou Project contents on Steam, and the clause itself seems to offer implied permission. So, is Steam allowed? Well, that depends on the enforceability and Zun's discretion. For you see, Zun reserves a rather substantial amount of power. He could, if he wanted to, seize the reins of the IP rather readily. But the wide scope of his discretionary authority means he also has the discretion not to pull the reins at all. Though on the surface,
like we said at the beginning, right,
it's discretion Zun reserves for himself, this does not look like an especially lenient set of guidelines for fan creators. It is, in fairness, about as lenient as one can get without endangering one's control over one's IP. Consider this. Chunsoft was lambasted just a few months ago for updating its guidelines for fan works to be too strict, targeting specifically so-called fangans, stemming from its Danganronpa series. Let's take a look at what Spike Chunsoft's allegedly draconian guidelines look like compared to Touhou's almost public domain guidelines. But we can see here that Spike Chunsoft limits its permission to non-commercial fan works created, published, and distributed within Japan. Even its exception for doujin sales is narrowly constrained. Certain physical goods must be sold directly, are limited to 100 units per item, and cannot be projected to earn more than 100,000 yen, which means the sale price multiplied by the total number of copies manufactured has to be less than roughly the equivalent of 616 US dollars at the present exchange rate. We'll see how much worse that number gets in time, I suppose, but I digress. Most significantly for our purposes, Spike Chunsoft's general fan work license expressly excludes derivative games, both digital and analog, as well as derivative music. It also separately reserves the discretion to prohibit other works it considers inappropriate, which is a pretty broad reservation of discretion. As such, Spike Chunsoft does indeed grant a much narrower scope of permission for
what is Spike Chunsoft like? Who do
by
they?
Contrast,
What games have they published?
Expressly permits fan games, fan music, fan videos, physical works, digital distribution, and several forms of monetization through recognized channels. Interestingly enough, I think this is where Touhou gets its reputation as being almost public domain.
Oh, that's why the Danganronpa.
There is a real difference here. Touhou is actually more permissive, and Zunkran's creators substantially more freedom than Spike Chunsoft does in what they may create, distribute, and monetize. That said, if we look instead at what each creator reserves the right to prohibit, the policies look much more familiar. Both guidelines prohibit works that appear official, that damage the original franchise's reputation, infringe third-party rights, reproduce official assets, promote hatred, or otherwise cross broadly defined boundaries. Both also preserve broad discretionary authority to intervene against so-called particular works, although Spike Chunsoft reserves that power more aggressively than Zun does. The interests being protected and many of the legal guardrails used to protect them are remarkably similar. But the amount of creative freedom permitted within those guardrails is not. Consider, though, that we're comparing an ostensible worst-case scenario in Spike Chunsoft and an ostensible best-case scenario in Touhou. What happens if we compare Touhou to another Japanese franchise existing in that same strict legal environment that has also deliberately built itself around fan creation?
Oh?
Let's get a little crazier, shall we? Let's drag in, I don't know, Hololive.
Well, oh my god, Narissa bad. All right. A little bit of a yap here. I mean, guys, Hololive, man. They're so chill with it, bro. They're so chill with it. Like, what can I say, man? Like, I can actually say, having spoken to Holo staff, Holo members, again, this is just like, just casual here and there kind of talk as well, right? It is what it is, man. We love Hololive in this house, bro. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, they've watched our reaction. We've had Hololive members jump in our Hololive streams, watch our reactions. We had Ollie watch our reaction to Holo ID and also translate with us literally live in chat, and also jumped on call with us at the end of the stream to talk about it and give us, behind the scenes, like, tidbits about the stream itself, right? The event itself. Yeah, man. Yeah. Like, come on, man. Come on. Like, they understand it, bro. They understand it. I feel like this is such a good video for us because we can talk about our experiences and our takes on it, our experiences with it, especially with Hololive as well. I mean, bro, we have an entire day dedicated to Hololive with the Holo Mondays, man. Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, right? Like, bro, we are literally doing a watch party to their concert, right? And we have Hololive members watching along. Right.
I don't know. Hololive. For those who don't know, Hololive is a very popular VTuber network where human performers take on the personas of digital avatars to do live streams. Now, upon first glance, Hololive's guidelines are impressively permissive. Fans don't need to request individual permission for compliant derivative works, and Cover, the corporation behind Hololive, expressly states that it will not exercise its rights against works that follow the guidelines, which is actually more lenient than Touhou.
It's, yeah, pretty much, man. Pretty much. Yeah. And the main thing is, right, like, just don't step on their toes, innit? Don't step on their toes. And if you do, I'm pretty sure they'll reach out and say, hey, can you not do that before sending you flipping SEAL Team 6 to strike you down.
But there is a limitation baked in. Hololive's general permissions only extend to works at the fan or hobby level. As a baseline, derivative works cannot be used for business or for-profit purposes. Now, Hololive does allow monetization in specific categories. For example, fan clips can earn ad revenue on platforms like YouTube. Covers of songs performed by Hololive personalities such as Dog Girl, Baby Shark, Sherlock Holmes, Watson, and Hosho Marin, as well as remixes of those songs, may also be monetized on platforms like YouTube and other approved video sharing services, provided they comply with the guidelines. And creators can even release paid fan games through Hololive's game creator support program.
That's pretty cool, Holo Indie,
But unlike Touhou, these commercial permissions are rather carefully controlled. Paid games, for example, require an application, screening, and publication through the Holo Indie program. Other kinds of commercial distribution of said games may require separate approval, and Cover reserves a broad authority to intervene against works it considers unsuitable or in violation of its guidelines. Zun's system, by comparison, is relatively informal. Touhou creators can sell through doujin markets, distribute fan music, monetize free fan games through ad revenue, and more without first passing through what is essentially a corporate screening process. Ultimately, the legal guardrails are once again familiar. Both Touhou and Hololive prohibit works that appear official, damage the franchise's reputation, infringe third-party rights, promote political or ideological causes, or otherwise cross broadly defined boundaries. The major difference is in the administration. Zun operates like an indie dev. He permits broadly and administers very lightly. Hololive, on the other hand, permits broadly but administers its IP very closely. This trend remains pretty consistent even if we expand our sample size of guidelines, so I'll stop with just these two examples. The takeaway is, the law is only a part of the answer. Zun really does grant fan creators more freedom than many other IP holders do, and he does so with considerably less bureaucracy than even other fan-friendly companies. The law, I'm afraid, is only half the battle. The guidelines can help us to understand why and how fan creators are able to make their fan works, but they cannot, by themselves at least, explain why that freedom has led to one of the most vibrant ecosystems in all of fan creation. To understand that, we must turn our attention to two other things, the first being the nature of Touhou itself, and the second being the community that grew around it. Touhou was built from the ground up not so much as a game per se, but a video game music album that just so happened to also be a game. The music was always at the center of Touhou, and it still kind of is. For any media franchise, whether that's Danganronpa, Baby Shark and Friends, or Touhou, the core of the franchise determines how much creative freedom can safely exist around it. We discussed this briefly in the Pokemon Showdown video, but what is the core of Pokemon?
Oh my
It's gotta catch 'em all, which is in part how Pokemon Showdown, which specifically doesn't involve any aspect of catching, eludes the Eye of Sauron that is Nintendo legal. It reproduces one important part of Pokemon, the competitive battling, without trying to replace the franchise's central collecting fantasy. For Hololive, even with its genuinely permissive fan work policies, it still has to exercise rather tight creative control when it comes to character portrayals, as that's its bread and butter. For Touhou, the original core of the series was its music. Thus, as the franchise grew and fanworks developed, Touhou was uniquely situated to permit narrative fanworks, in ways that almost no other games or franchises could without surrendering necessary creative control. But I'd argue it didn't stay that way. Consider this. In December of 2003 at Komiketo, an enormous doujin convention that takes place twice a year in Tokyo, there were only 7 circles or individual creators/small creator groups representing Touhou content. By December of 2010, that number had grown to 2,774 circles as per Know Your Meme. Fan creators produced all kinds of musical arrangements, games, comics, animations, and merch, and with those creations, the fans created new points of entry into the franchise. And Touhou became known not merely for its great music and difficult games, but for the incredible creativity and fan content it enabled. Just a casual search for Touhou on Steam returns hundreds of results, and June 2026 alone saw several new Touhou-related games and demos, alongside new music and downloadable content. And the releases keep coming. July has already given us multiple new fan games. I frankly don't even want to know what Touhou Russian Roulette entails.
My god!
The size and scope of the creator community then completely changes the IP calculus. For most IP holders, protecting the core means preventing outsiders from exercising too much control over the IP. But if fan creation itself has become an essential part of the core, then protecting the capacity
well, that's the game for music
for fans to participate is protecting the IP itself. This then is the nature of Touhou. Zun created an IP full of characters and potential stories primarily to showcase his music. The fans expanded outwards from that origin with his permission, and in so doing, Zun inadvertently fostered a thriving fan community that became eventually inseparable from the franchise's core identity. But granting a community that much freedom only works if the community understands the boundaries. It can be trusted not to destroy the very system that sustains it. Which brings us to our conversation. He trusted not to destroy the very system that sustains it. Which brings us to our conversation about nurture. As we often discuss on Moon Channel, Japanese doujin culture exists inside a rather precarious legal gray area. Japanese IP law strongly favors the rights holder, while fan creators are permitted to produce and even sell derivative works provided they remain recognizably unofficial, relatively limited in scale, and separated from the rights holder's principal commercial interests. their core, in other words. This careful agreement between Japanese rights holders and Japanese fans is generally unspoken and exists largely, but as we've seen, not exclusively, by implication. Thus, when Western fans get involved making content for the Japanese IPs they love, there's a bit of a bull in a china shop effect. Not unlike brazen American tourists loudly yelling at each other from across a subway car in the Tokyo metro, Western fans may not understand the existing social contract or may simply reject the values underlying it. In America, we talk loudly to each other all the time. No matter where we are, and we're not Japanese, we're on vacation, so we simply don't care about your values. Western fan culture also tends to place greater emphasis upon what the individual creator believes they are entitled to do. Whether one's use is fair, for example, or whether it makes money, or whether the rights holder suffers any concrete harm, or whether the company ought to appreciate the free advertising.
Wow. I mean, I agree with the statement, by the way. Piracy is 100% service issue. It is. It is, bro.
Any concrete harm, or whether the company
That's what the old CEO of Netflix said as well, no?
Fan creation very often thereby becomes an assertion of independence from the rights holder almost as much as it is an expression of affection for their work. But Touhou's fandom is a little bit different. It's very well acculturated to the Japanese standards of
was it Gabe that said it?
I'd argue that this...
Why the hell am I thinking Netflix? Oh, shoot. Okay, my bad. It was Gabe. It was Steam that said it. Okay.
This is in part due to Zun's unusually strong familiarity with Western aesthetics and cultural reference points, and his deliberate interest in combining Eastern and Western traditions. Hence, as we discussed, the name Shanghai Alice. From the very beginning, Touhou drew upon Western influences from literature to architecture to Christian imagery to classical music to even Western video games, while combining those elements with Japanese folklore and doujin culture. Zun's cultural fluency then helped to make the Touhou community unusually accessible to Western audiences, despite its otherwise rather niche and, for a lack of a better term, preposterously weebish presentation. And the niche presentation itself may have helped. Touhou's Western audience was somewhat self-selecting. The people willing to venture deeply enough into its bullet hell games, doujin albums, fan translations, and its internet communities were also unusually likely to encounter and learn the norms surrounding them. Zun's attitude towards creative ownership also offered something recognizable to both sides. He retained the conditional boundaries of Japanese doujin culture while granting fans a degree of individual creative freedom that Western audiences could readily appreciate. He has acknowledged that fans often use his characters without asking, and has said that this does not particularly trouble him provided he remains free to create the official games he wants to create. Thus, we have an IP designed to move comfortably between East and West, controlled by a creator unusually willing to let others reign.
Is this real?
Interpret it and surrounded by a mature doujin culture capable of teaching newcomers where its boundaries lie. The result is a devoted fan base nurtured by Zun that is willing to nurture the franchise in return. We can actually observe how important cultural fluency is, by the way, by observing the same phenomenon in reverse. There's a Western developer with an unusually deep familiarity with Japanese games, music, and fan culture who created a work capable of crossing from West to East with similarly little cultural friction, but with much cultural enthusiasm. That developer, said Summoning Salt again, was Toby Fox. Toby Fox was born on October 11th, 1991 in Manchester, New Hampshire. As a child, Fox took music lessons and learned how to play the piano and trumpet. Let this be a lesson to you, new parents. If you want your kid to be a nerdy video game music-making prodigy, make sure they learn the trumpet. In any case, by middle school, Fox developed a love for video game music. He recalls being enchanted by the music of Final Fantasy VI and loved Japanese role-playing games such as Earthbound, Secret of Mana, and Super Mario RPG. He became intimately familiar with the Japanese composers who worked on these games, citing his love in particular for the works of Yoko Shimomura, who wrote music for games including Super Mario RPG, Legend of Mana, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Street Fighter II. Of note, Shimomura also wrote the song Megalomania for the 1994 JRPG Live Alive. An RPG, it must be said, that only received a worldwide release on the Switch back in 2022. Another one of his influences was specifically Touhou. In middle school, Fox recalls downloading the demo versions of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil and Perfect Cherry Blossom. He recalled once playing a piano rendition of the Perfect Cherry Blossom track Necrophantasia at his church's summer camp. Even as a youth then, Fox was plugged into Japanese video game culture enough to have access to and to have played games that were almost totally unknown in the United States. He knew not only the music, not only the games, but the creative traditions and rules that surrounded those works. Although Fox would later major in environmental science at Northeastern University, his passion always remained in video game music. In 2009, Fox composed music for the infamous webcomic series Homestuck, during which he composed an early rendition of his arguably most well-known song, Megalovania. If you don't know it by name, you might recognize it by its first 4 notes. He later brought that musical sensibility along with his love of Japanese role-playing games and bullet hell shooters into his smash hit game, Undertale. Undertale was a hit in the West, but the game also developed a substantial and devoted following in Japan. If you've ever played Undertale and have some familiarity with various Japanese games, you will readily see the resemblance here. Undertale borrows quite evidently from Touhou with its music and bullet hell gameplay, but also from visual novels with its storytelling, and from JRPGs with its art and role-playing elements. And Japanese gamers were readily able to plug into this familiar ecosystem. Fox even studied Japanese, and he knew the language well enough to closely supervise the localization, paying careful attention to how each character's voice, jokes, and implied background would survive the translation. One frequently discussed example amongst Japanese gamers is Sans use of the uncommon first-person pronoun oida, which gives his Japanese dialogue a distinctly rustic and informal character. Japanese audiences in turn recognized Fox's cultural fluency. Where a lot of Western games and Western devs use Japanese aesthetics almost like a cosplay or costume, Undertale did not use Japanese aesthetics, but nevertheless managed to communicate in the Japanese creative language. Now, Fox's fandom and popularity grew in Japan to the point where he became accepted within the wider Japanese gaming industry, which, if you know the Japanese gaming industry, is a pretty tough feat. He's gone so far as to compose music now for mainline Pokemon games, including Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. Which brings us back to Zun and Touhou. Touhou is unmistakably Japanese, and it remains rooted in Japanese doujin culture. But Zun's fluency with Western music and literature, games, and imagery made his work unusually digestible abroad, despite how intensely Japanese it remains. And when Western fans then followed those familiar cultural threads into Touhou, they encountered a surprisingly welcoming fan-creator atmosphere and a plethora of existing fan content that established governing norms on how that creative privilege should be respected. Toby Fox's cultural fluency enabled Japanese players to understand a Western creator's vision. Zun's cultural fluency helped Western fans enter a Japanese creative ecosystem. I'd argue that without cultural fluency, without cultural understanding, neither Undertale nor Touhou could be what it is. But there is a distinction here. The creative core of Undertale and Deltarune remains the narrative nature of the works. And as such, Toby Fox doesn't quite have as much room to permit fan works as Touhou. In fact, Toby Fox originally had a no fan merch policy, which he amended to be much more open after, and I quote, talking to a lawyer. This is where the Touhou difference lies. Ultimately, it requires the law, but also the nature and the nurture to end up with something as unique as Touhou. Its nature made permissive fan creation valuable, and as such both possible and unusually sustainable. Touhou began as a home for Zun's music, leaving enormous creative territory around its characters and world. As the derivative ecosystem expanded, fan creation itself became inseparable from the franchise's identity. Its nurture then made that creative freedom sustainable. Zun established unusually generous boundaries, doujin culture supplied the social contract governing said boundaries, and the community learned to protect the system from which it benefited. And Zun's cultural fluency brought Western fans into that system safely, only further developing the franchise's core. So how is Touhou legally possible? Well, it's not because Touhou is public domain, it's not because Zun has abandoned creative control of his intellectual property, and it's not because Japanese law provides some sort of secret fan work exception. Touhou is possible because Zun's incentives align with those of his community. He retained the control necessary to protect the official franchise while creating an unusually broad zone of permission, from which Zun then cultivated a community capable of cultivating the franchise in return. Which is to say, returning to the very beginning of the video, it's not just a matter of law. It's a skill issue. A skill issue of content, creator, and community that allows Touhou Project to be truly in a league of its own.
Damn, what a video. What a video. That was very...
というわけで、東宝プロジェクト、なんかアメ メリカでも人気らしくて。マジすごいね、さすがズンさん。ありがとうございます。アメリカはどうでしょうか、ズンさん。好きです。そんなこと言わない。いや、俺アメリカ行ったことないけど、ズンさんアメリカ行ったことある？ある。アメリカでもさ、東宝の人気ってすごいですよね。すごかった。みんな東宝の何に惹かれるんだろう。和風の感じ。それは僕には分からない。分からない。みんな教えてくれ。コメント please, comment please.
As part of my research for this video, I asked a number of friends whom I knew to have an interest in Touhou about Touhou.
Oh my god.
And every single one, I kid you not, of the 5 different people I asked responded with almost the exact same answer. Oh, you know, I'm no expert, but I know people who are. It makes me wonder if there actually is anyone who is truly an expert at Touhou, who has played all the games and knows all the songs and can tell me what distinguishes Phantasmagoria of Flower View from Antinomy of Common Flowers. Surely someone out there knows everything there is to know about Touhou, about Reimu and Cirno and Hongmei Ling. But oddly enough, that's almost antithetical to what Touhou is. Touhou is for the children. Touhou is for music nerds who can identify all the bad Apple references in the Silva Gunner rips I use as backing tracks. Touhou is for US military personnel using an ATACMS short-range tactical ballistic missile launch via HIMARS as a backdrop for their video of their Fumo plushie. Touhou is for the angsty teen who uses a phonetically murderous grinning silhouette of Flanders Scarlet as their Discord profile icon. And yes, Touhou is even for people who've played the games.
Even
no one person needs to know all of Touhou because no single part of the franchise is the entirety of Touhou. One can enter the gate through the games, the music, the memes, the fan animations, the plushies, or a remix of a song from a game they have never played before, accidentally misrepresented as a work of classical music and performed by a hapless but well-intentioned pianist who was born before the invention of the integrated circuit. And rather than diluting the original work, as is so often the purported danger with fan works, each of those points of entry draws another person into a creative ecosystem. Each fan work adds something more to the immense body of creation that is Touhou. That, ultimately, is the product of Zun's unusual approach to intellectual property. He decides where the official boundaries lie, and he retains the authority to enforce those boundaries, but culturally, Touhou has never belonged only to him. Its identity as a franchise is spread across thousands upon thousands of creators and millions of fans, each of whom may only know but a piece of the massive whole. Which is why perhaps there is no single Touhou expert. To truly know everything Touhou would mean not only knowing everything Zun has personally created, but also knowing everything that everyone else has created. It means knowing embodiment of Scarlet Devil, but also Touhou Russian roulette. And such a feat, it turns out, may simply be impossible. But maybe that's the point. Touhou is legally possible because Zun knows how to preserve his authority without requiring every creative possibility to flow through him. He preserves the unique core of the franchise while allowing the community to build outward in seemingly limitless directions, with trust flowing in both directions.
This is incredible.
And in so doing, he has created something that very few rights holders, perhaps even no other rights holders, have ever managed to make. A magical world locked behind a barrier that is also somehow accessible to everyone.
Barrier mentioned.
Mooney.
Barrier mentioned.
I hope you enjoyed this short legal video on a fun topic.
Damn, that was interesting, man.
10% of its revenue to Doctors Without Borders, so we sincerely appreciate your patience with this video sponsor, Ugreen.
Wow.
A special thanks to Silva Gunner for the music, to Ugreen, and to all of our beloved patrons, without whom none of this would be possible. And thank you, of course, for tuning in to Moon Channel.
Wow, what a banger video, man. Thank you very much for that. Very informative, and I love how we got to kind of give our 2 cents on a few of the relevant topics as well, with some that we have knowledge on, or I guess relation to. But yeah, love that. Thank you, man. Absolute banger of a video there. And yeah, guys, we just gotta give a massive thank you to Zun. Thank you to the creators that make what we do possible as well, you know, from our thing, like from us making content, like as a whole as well, for for you guys, for our community, like being able to play the games, being able to consume all these fan content, fan works, and all of that. So thank you to all the creators, man. And thank you, Moon Channel, for this very informative breakdown. Thank you. It's great, man. It's brilliant stuff. You are king. Dream, 조선은 탄조, 조선은 조리어 받고, 결혼한 스틸로, 스스밤에 시켰던 바를 비가키야. 하나 사간 스무가시 바나시 카나 스토리 원하시 drop. Yeah, my title, you king, ta.
do it for the fam, I do it for the team, yeah, I do it with my hands. Team 1 till we're hand, and all you got go eat so 3 ratchet poke time the fam. Gagja verse gas so too, back at either time to go to. Gagja side dollar go no, Java Joe, we all want explosion, bam. No doubt it's the bills that I'm choosing. Pure cash from the white that I'm moving. Never losing. Self-care with the yellow make it for the bleeding and bruising.